Welcome to What's Up in Jeju, where I visit places around the island and talk about what's happening with hashtag Daily K's host, Peter Bint.
So where are we headed today? I said in hour one, it's something to do with food.
Yes, it is. So we head to the Jeju-si 5-day market located in Jeju-si. But before we get into that, and I hate to put you on the spot, but hey, go ahead and just off the cuff, shoot some guesses. Could you try to guess some main elements that would be needed for traditional Jeju cuisine? What would you think would be required?
I've been doing this corner, I don't know, for nigh on a year, so I'm quite an expert at Jeju. So, of course, you would need the wind, the rocks, and the women in your cuisine. You'd also need tangerines and dol harubang, the stone grandfathers, and some golgiguksu.
Yeah,
which
that's
is very traditional. You know, the meat noodles. There you go.
I'll take it. I'll take it. That's actually pretty good. That's, especially with the samdo, right? The elements of the wind, the rocks, and the women. Somehow that totally makes sense. So I will accept that answer as a Jeju resident. But why don't we go ahead and take a look at our first photo to get a better idea of proper traditional Jeju setup.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So maybe those three elements are hidden somewhere, or I was wrong. It just looks like a big bowl of rice in the middle, although it doesn't look like the normal white rice.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So what we are seeing here is the traditional setup of nangpun papsang. Now that in Jeju dialect is wooden bowl. The wooden bowl, that's the centerpiece. That is the rice in the middle. It's placed in the middle and it's surrounded by various dishes. Now, in the image, to describe it to our listeners, we have 4 images up, and let's go clockwise from the top left. And each one represents a season. So top left, that would be spring. Top right is summer. And then the bottom right is the autumn. And finally, where we are at, incorporating sweet potato, that is the winter. So community, as we know, Jeju culture, community is paramount. It emphasizes, of course, the importance of sharing, but also kind of divvying up everything equally. So everybody needs to have an equal amount of food. The rice is in the middle. And in Jeju, mothers are busy, right? Many working as haenyeo who are also tending farms and gardens. We have to remember that haenyeo wasn't really considered, or still is not even considered, an occupation. It's just a way of life. So they're just so busy. So with this nangpun papsang, the rice in the middle, that's like, okay, the rice is in the middle. Go ahead, you take your share. I'm not going to serve each one of you individually. It's up to you guys. It's up to y'all to make sure you serve yourself appropriately. And so they had to take it upon themselves to serve in the setup.
Yeah, that's not common. You know, in Korea on the mainland, you get your bowl of rice each. There's no sharing bowl, and wooden bowls are not very common up here either. So that's really interesting. So you mentioned the Jeju-si 5-day market. So you're on a bit of a mission there?
Yeah, so that is right. That was the plan. I wanted to see if I could possibly find or even recreate some traditional Jeju cuisine. And with the Jeju-si 5-day market being the largest of its kind, it was actually opened in 1905. I was bound to find these proper ingredients, hopefully. But to be honest, I mean, with my limited culinary know-how and my Korean as well, I wouldn't, especially Jeju dialect, I wouldn't have the slightest clue as to who to ask and what to find.
Oh, well, I'm sure you failed then. So is this a video of failure we have today, Mark?
Not quite. I was actually, I got a bit of help in the form of Yang Yong-jin. Now, he is the director of the Jeju Local Food Preservation Research Institute. He's essentially the Gordon Ramsay. He's the original master when it comes to Jeju traditional cuisine. We'll dive deeper into his history, his background, and his active preservation of traditional Jeju food culture in part 2.
I'm guessing with traditional Jeju food, there's probably lots of energy boosting stuff, since traditionally lots of manual jobs related to the sea, like haenyeo.
You know, it kind of reminds me of, back in the States, I worked on a farm. I worked on several farms. And, there's something that we have is just a farmer's breakfast, whether it be, biscuits and gravy or just, maybe even English breakfast, right? Where it's just a lot of protein and a lot of dense carbs. And some of the meals that we prepared or that we made ourselves with this buckwheat, I could say the same thing. It's like this dense carb and protein action that kind of sits in your belly for a bit, and it keeps you going for a while. So, that's right on the head there with that kind of comment, because I said it as well. It's like I actually feel this kind of like cool, slow burning like energy, not like hot energy, but something that could keep me going for a while.
So we've got to learn a bit more about Mr. Yang and his deep history in Jeju culinary arts.
We do. But actually, we need to first talk about his mother, and we can actually see her in our second picture. Let's take a look.
Oh, okie dokie. That is when Mr. Yang had longer hair.
Yes.
Is that Mr. Yang or is his father?
That's him. That's him. Yes.
Okay, good.
So his mother, you could just say she's just a great woman. You see, back in the 1950s, his mother, Kim Chi-soon, was just one of 2 women from the entire island who went to study in Seoul. Off of the entire island. Yes. After her studies, she became a lecturer at Jeju universities in cuisine. So, Mr. Yang talked about how all these different meals that he ate, and his friends, his childhood friends, just didn't believe him because it was just so otherworldly, right? He would talk about buffets and because she wasn't even really teaching about Jeju cuisine, but just worldly cuisine. She's like, okay, Jeju guys, Jeju folks, this is what the world's doing. She brought it to Jeju. But then she came to the realization that no one was recording or archiving traditional Jeju cuisine. It wasn't happening.
So that's the link here, maybe the inspiration for Mr. Yang. So did she go about like archiving and preserving it as well?
That's right. She did it starting in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And so naturally, yes, Mr. Yang became part of that process. But it actually wasn't until his adult years when he studied in Rome that he reached this epiphany on Jeju food culture preservation.
So you did prepare some dishes yourself. You didn't just eat in the restaurant and then we're going to skip over you preparing something.
Right. So in the first video, you saw us gather all the ingredients. And I guess I'll let you and our listeners and our those who are watching the streaming decide if I succeeded with our final photo. Why don't we take a look?
All right, here we are. The moment of truth. Mark's dish that he prepared, or dishes, I should say.
Yes.
Again, it looks very plain.
Yeah.
Subtle. Let's say subtle.
Mm-hmm.
It looks subtly wonderful.
Yes, and there's a lot of white, no red, no kimchi going on. So if we begin from left to right, we have on the lower left, we have Jin Maemul. Jin meaning thick, of course, and Maemul, which is Jeju for buckwheat. So this is diced radish that's brought to a boil and mixed with buckwheat flour, resulting in this soup-like almost porridge action going on. And if you prefer more texture, you can undercook it for a smoother porridge-like consistency.
Wow.
You can, overcook it almost. And you'll find with this dish and the next dish, which is kongguk, or simply bean soup, if you just alter the time a little bit, if you overcook or undercook, it's all to preference. So that's really neat, depending on each household that you go to. So right next to it on the bottom, that is kongguk, or simply bean soup. That's prepared by boiling ground Jeju beans and adding greens of radish and Jeju cabbage with only salt, just salt for seasoning. Then above, which
I've never heard of that.
Yeah,
kongguk.
And just above it, which you could compare it to maybe a crepe or crepe, is bingduk. That is that was my original mission to make. Or Maemul jeonbyang. That is the quintessential Jeju party dish. It is made with, now listen, 100% buckwheat with seasoned radish with green onion as well. You'll find that a lot of bingduk, although it's very delicious in the markets, they add flour, so it's not 100% pure. To make it proper, it's got to be, once again, Jeju buckwheat, not just any old buckwheat. And finally, that is the tile fish. It is just coated on the top with sesame oil and just flamed a little bit, baked a little bit. And even, again, Mr. Yang found the vendor. He has particular vendors he goes to because this person, they dry their fish out, using the sea breeze. So they do it by the ocean.
Ooh.
Many establishments, many joints that dry fish, they use the machine, but apparently it over dries it. But if you actually do it not the right way, but the original way, it's using the sea breeze, which has a bit of salt in the air, and it just keeps a bit of moisture in. So much moisture in dried fish. It was amazing.
Mr. Yang has a restaurant and is opening up a second.
Yes, that is called Nangpoon Papsang. That's the dish that we talked about, the setup. And that's going to be his new establishment. He kind of had a renovation and relocation. It's going to be in Jeju City, and it's going to open up in February, so real soon. Yeah.
Nice. Check it out. Oh, Mark, that was amazing to see the subtleties of Jeju cuisine that we're maybe not so familiar with. As you said, maybe even tricky to find in Jeju if you're not really deep into the weeds there.
Yes.
Honest assessment, is it a bit like artsy-fartsy in terms of having taste buds that are tuned into subtleties?
You know, that is so funny. That's something that I asked Mr. Young as well. Do you need to have like a trained palate or be an expert at this? And I'm no expert. And I could taste the subtleties. Maybe I was just in the moment or kind of in the zone and like totally like focused in because I was around with him all day. But yeah, it was a very different feeling. It you know, when you think of Korean traditional food, you might think of red pepper paste and spice and fermentation, and this is legit Jeju traditional stuff we're talking about, and it was none of that. And so that was eye-opening to me, and I still have to kind of think to myself, did that really just happen? Did Mr. Yang just come in and like, you know, service this incredible food? He came, like, by the time I was you know, filming the ending there, he already left. He's like, well, enjoy, and then he just leaves. We're like, oh, okay, like, do you want to hang out?
Amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's so cool, isn't it? All right, I hope Mr. Young is available for Chujang for business trips to Seoul to come to our kitchen and leave like that as well. Mark, as ever, thank you so much for your wonderful video and for your wonderful sous chef cooking there.
Well, many thanks to you and #DailyK for, allowing this to happen. I mean, it's just incredible. It's a great way to start the new year. So thanks to you guys. Thanks to all the listeners and everybody watching as well.
Fabulous. Have a great week, Mark. We'll see you again next Tuesday.
See you then. What's Up in Jeju is supported by the JDC, which is creating a free international city that resembles nature, embraces the future, and reaches the world. I'm Mark Wilson Che, with writer Che Jung-yun. This is Arirang Radio.